Hello Horror Hounds. At a little over 60 minutes, you wouldn't have thought that The Corpse Vanishes, a little crime thriller with huge lashings of horror overtones, starring the great Bela Lugosi, would have time to drag, but boy does it drag. It drags more than RuPaul. And the pacing issues are very strange for a film that comes out of the traps like Usain Bolt. As soon as the film starts, a bride dies in front of the altar as soon as she says her I do. The coroner whisks her body away, only moments later for the real coroner to turn up. Then, spinning newspaper headlines instruct us that this has happened again. Another society bride dies during her wedding and her corpse has been kidnapped. Patricia Hunter, a society columnist with aspirations for true investigative journalism, believes that a strange orchid left at the crime scene could be a clue, and when her editor gives her enough leeway to do a little bit of investigating, she follows her nose to Dr. Lorenz, a famous European botanist now living in America with his beautiful but spiteful wife. And that botanist is Bela Lugosi. And this all sounds like breakneck stuff, and for the first 5, maybe 10 minutes, it is. Perhaps almost breathlessly too quick, as if the movie feels the need to grab your attention with a succession of and then, in case you somehow lose interest and start wandering off. But it's leaden direction, almost zombie-like editing, and a score that occasionally rouses itself into flurries, as if the orchestra themselves are jolting themselves awake, that suck any life out of the proceedings. By the time we learn that Dr. Lorenz needs his corpse brides for their youth-giving glandular fluids, which he injects into his elderly wife in order to keep her young and fend off death, you look at the runtime and think, there can't be much of this left. I might as well watch it till the end. Hey, it can't be all that bad. At least Bela Lugosi's in it. But the filmmakers must have been under some serious time restraints and budgetary restraints, seeing as how many takes, including fluffed lines and limp to comatose line readings, made it into the final cut of the movie. Some of the cast try their best to inject some energy into the proceedings, though. Aside from Lugosi himself, who we will inevitably get to, Elizabeth Russell plays the spiky, nasty Countess Lorenz, and well-known admirers of low-budget horror films will perhaps recognise her from memorable supporting roles she's made in films like Bedlam with Boris Karloff, The Seventh Victim, and The Cat People and Curse of the Cat People, which I think will appear relatively soon on this very channel. Russell, by the way, can sure give a slap. Lorna Walters plays Patricia Hunter, the feisty reporter. She's a sort of bargain basement version of Rosalind Russell's fast-talking, no-nonsense reporter in Howard Hawks' His Girl Friday. But at least she's there trying to give it her all, and she's a welcome presence in the film. It's all undermined in the end, though, when she continually faints at the sight of anything horrific that always happens off-screen. You have Angelo Rossito, who plays Toby, the dwarf, one of the 2 sons of Dr. Lorenz's assistants. This guy has appeared in more than 70 films in a career lasting nearly 60 years. You will have seen him in something. He's one of the title characters in Todd Browning's Freaks. He was a stunt double for Shirley Temple in the 1930s. His final film appearance was in Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome, where he was the master of the Master Blaster combination. And finally we have Bela himself as Dr. Lorenz, a mad botanist whose wife needs regular injections of the precious bodily fluids of young ladies in order to stay young and healthy. All the ingredients are here. You've got brides dying at the altar and their corpses being stolen. You've got an investigative reporter following the clue of a single orchid worn by every vanishing bride. You have a mad botanist living in an old mansion with an imperious wife. You have Dr. Lorenz's servants, the 2 sons of his assistant, Toby, the cunning dwarf, and Angel, the lumbering man-child who fetishizes the corpse brides, stroking their hair while they lay on the slab. Dr. Lorenz and his countess sleep in his and hers coffins, and the mansion is replete with secret passages leading to midnight explorations of basement laboratories, replete with coffins housing the missing brides. And yet none of these elements are stitched together with any semblance of real skill or theatricality. Every once in a while the film seems to remember that it's supposed to be spooky and musters up the occasional riff on Lugosi's smash hit Dracula. Shadows loom over sleeping women. Lugosi will leer at you through the screen and bend over those women. His assistants are essentially ciphers for Renfield. And to be honest, he is essentially draining the life force from young women to extend life, except this time it's for his wife, not for his vampiric needs. But all of these are nods to past glories for Bela and an attempt to zhuzh up a tired and limp story that is unfolding before you this time round. The film's in the public domain. I'm sure there are links on YouTube. If I can find them, I'll put them in the description field below. I would suggest, however, that this is one for Lugosi fans only, and even then I'm not sure whether you'd find any value in repeat viewings after having ticked it off your list. It was the subject of a very early episode of Mystery Science Theatre 3000, and if you're determined to check out The Corpse Vanishes, then doing so in the company of Joel, Tom Servo and Crow might well be the best way to do it. But my opinion is but one poison orchid amongst many. As ever, I like to round off these reviews by giving you alternate viewpoints taken from Internet Movie Database user reviews. This one is coming to us from Shaggy Too Dope. Shaggy says, "This is an excellent movie. The cast is a great mix of characters and the story is decent. The movie is basically about a well-accomplished doctor stealing the bodies of dead brides and taking them to his home. Once the bodies are at his home, he removes stuff. I hate to use such a general term, but I forget what it was he removed. And he puts it into his wife to retain her youth. Then a reporter, Patricia Hunter, investigates the situation and begins to find answers on why the brides were dying. She takes a trip to the doctor's house and the interesting things begin to take place. Definitely watch this oldie but goodie if you can." Whereas Spikeopath says, "Monogram mess that has gained a modicum of support in horror circles purely for being unintentionally funny. Maybe I'm just jaded by the ream of cheaply made mad scientist movies from the 40s. But there's just not enough fright or flight here to detract from what a tedious exercise in cash cowing on the back of the Lugosi name it is. It's not as if I'm against the bonkers premise where Bela poisons new brides-to-be with an orchid and uses their fluids to keep his mad wife young. Hell, I like Berserk sometimes, but the static direction, ham acting and creaking production just irritates and makes the hour-long running time seem like 2 hours. One for Lugosi completists only, I'm afraid. 2 out of 10.